Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guest today is a man named Jeremy Genovese, and he's here today to talk about being vegan because he is vegan. Okay, thank you so much for agreeing to appear on Fresh Perspectives today.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Now I want to ask you something about some questions about yourself so that the studio audience can get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
Now, what line of work were you in, Jeremy?
So I'm retired now, but previously in my working life, I taught human development and educational psychology at Cleveland State University. So I was an associate professor there for many years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what caused you to decide to be in the line of work you were in?
Well, it was an area that I had a very eclectic background. My master's degree my undergraduate degree was in anthropology. My master's degree was in biological anthropology, and then for my Ph.D. I switched to learning and development theory. Mm-hmm. So I've always been very interested in how biology and culture interact, mm-hmm. and to what extent do we understand human beings in terms of their biological evolutionary history, and to what extent do we understand people as cultural beings. That led to the study of development and how children develop and issues related to that. That was my profession. So I had a typical academic life of teaching, research, and so
Well,
forth.
it sounds like you were in a really important line of work. I've found I've read various different things about psychology over the course of my adult life, mm-hmm. and stuff that if I'd heard about it then I might have gone into some sort of field of psychology, because it just is really very interesting.
Well, I certainly think so. And I was in a very specialized area dealing mostly with development and learning theory, how mm-hmm. people learn and mm-hmm. so forth. So when you say you're a psychologist, people immediately say they want to talk to you about some problem they have. And I said, no, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I don't have a license to treat you. I just, I was a research psychologist and an instructor.
And where was the location of your workplace?
At Cleveland State University.
Cleveland State University.
Yeah, downtown Cleveland, yep.
Okay. Now, you got interested in a healthy lifestyle when you were a teenager. You said that you started practicing yoga back when you were 14 or 15 years old. Would you like to tell the viewing audience what led you to deciding to do that?
Well, I think part of it was just the influence of the times. Is that this would have been the late 60s, early 70s, and it was a time when there was a great deal of interest both in Eastern philosophy and also in more healthy diets.
Mm-hmm.
People were experimenting with a lot of things. So,
mm-hmm.
In that sense, I'm not sure I was very special. I think it was kind of the ethos.
It was
of
kind
the time,
of what was going on. I'm not so sure that it was around here. It seemed like I was kind of a freak, when I got into it in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of by myself with it for a while, but learning things from books and like that. But
well, to some extent, that's all you could do
mm-hmm.
back then. It wasn't like now. There's a yoga studio on every corner in some parts of the country.
Right, right.
But back then, there weren't yoga instructors. There were books, and that's where you
mm-hmm.
learned
mm-hmm.
yoga.
Yeah, I started out with "Be Here Now" by Ram Dass.
Oh, Ram Dass. Yes, I remember that book.
Yeah,
sure.
He just passed away
less
than 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was living in Hawaii, and he just died recently.
Yeah, he was a pretty amazing person.
He was a very interesting person.
Oh
yes.
yeah. So, now, did you become vegetarian?
No, not right away.
Not right away?
No,
not when you first started practicing?
No, I toyed around with it, and I certainly knew that it was an option that was out there. I was lucky enough to, when I was about 18 years old, I was lucky enough to meet Scott and Helen Nearing. Who,
Oh, you got to meet them.
Yeah, I
oh,
did. I got to
you're a
meet them.
lucky man.
I am, yes.
Yes.
And people are shocked, actually, because Scott Nearing used to teach at the Chautauqua Institution.
You know,
here.
I believe I heard that because I read a couple of the books that he wrote.
Yeah, it's in his autobiography, as he talks about it. So he taught at the Chautauqua Institution, and I mentioned it to somebody who was familiar with Chautauqua history, and they were shocked because he taught here. It would have been like, 1917 would have been the last year he taught there. So how could I have known? Well, the thing was, Scott Nearing lived to be 100 years old. So
I'm not surprised.
So he lived for
Yeah.
a very long time. So I met him. He would have been in his 90s when I met him. So I was familiar with vegetarianism, but it wasn't until about 30 years ago, so really when I was in my 40s, when I started vegetarianism, and then I became a vegan probably about 24, 25 years ago. Now I'd have to do the math to figure. I lose count as you get older. You start to lose count about these things.
Well, as you go through life, the way it worked with me was I kept finding out more and more things. I believe when I first started practicing yoga at the age of 25, that I thought, just vegetarian was good enough. But over the years, I've learned more and more things. And eventually it got to the point where I realized, it was going to have to change. I started learning more that it had to do more not just with my health, but how it affects the environment. A lot of people don't know that animal agriculture affects the environment negatively, and the animals that are used in animal agriculture endure immense suffering.
Yeah, so for me, that's actually the primary issue, is that for me, veganism is primarily an ethical commitment. And the health benefits, so I believe there are health benefits, but my argument is that I would be a vegan even if there were no health benefits associated with it, because it's an ethical commitment to try to do as little harm in the world as possible.
Right, right. And a lot of people don't realize that animal agriculture is more than 60% of the contributing factor to global climate change.
Sure. Yes. So clearly, I think there's two ethical concerns. One is the suffering of the animals, which once again I think is a sufficient reason to take it. And for various cultural reasons, at least here in the United States or in many Western countries, people don't consider that to be an important factor, or they put it out of their mind, or they're removed from it. But then, as you indicated, the ecological, economic, environmental consequences of animal agriculture are stunning. Global warming being the most pressing example to us here, just as we're seeing now that we're beginning to really experience it. What people have been predicting for years.
We have a serious problem, and I don't think a lot of people want to believe it.
Right.
But another thing is, a lot of people will ask, well, what are we supposed to do with all those animals? And the thing of it is they don't realize that a lot of those animal births are not natural births, that a lot of animals nowadays are actually artificially inseminated.
Sure.
So.
Well, I mean, the question is about the individual suffering of the animals. So it's true that if people were to stop eating meat, there wouldn't be a need for these, but you wouldn't go out of your way to raise generation after generation of these animals to for slaughter. So it's not like we would all of a sudden be faced with this problem. Is that the existing generation of animals would disappear slowly, and then you wouldn't be raising them, so you wouldn't.
Yeah, there would still be enough animals.
Oh, sure.
It's just that we would not be exploiting them.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Anybody who's visited an animal sanctuary knows that animals can, that these animals can be taken care of and stuff and treated in a humane way, but you don't necessarily have to breed them. So, so I don't think that's a serious objection.
Yeah, I know. I've been amazed. I have asked people who knew questions about, like, how old would a chicken live to be, or a cow or whatever, if they weren't killed at a young age for food. And I've been amazed at how many years, I'm told, that an animal could actually live. I mean, their lives could be as good for them as ours are for us.
Their lives have value to them.
They do.
And we, in my opinion, I don't believe we have the right to substitute our judgment for theirs. That is, we don't have that right to deny. Any being that's capable of suffering, you have to factor that suffering, that capacity of suffering, into your moral equations.
You have to kind of think about, well, how would I feel if I were being treated that way?
Sure.
How would I feel if it was legal for somebody else to kill me?
Sure. Well, here's another way to think about it. There's a very famous episode of The Twilight Zone called To Serve Man. And it's about, without giving out too much, I guess I have to give it a little bit away, but essentially aliens from outer space come and they are exporting human beings to their home planet to eat them. And all the arguments, and they're clearly like they're smarter than us, and have greater technological capacity than us. So what argument would you use to persuade these aliens not to eat us, right? And they're exactly the same kind of arguments that the aliens would make the same kind of arguments that meat eaters make. Well, these human beings, they're not as smart as us, they're not as good as us, we can raise them for food, they'll be happy while we raise them, and so forth. So it's, I think if you examine the arguments that people make for consuming animal products, none of them are very persuasive.
Well, I guess the people that eat animal foods, it's my understanding that they overdose on protein.
Sure.
I mean, you probably have people ask you all the time, don't you? Where do you get your protein?
Sure.
It's like, I remember one book I read one time, the person that wrote the book is, most people fear a deficiency of protein more than they fear death.
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's interesting. I think, so obviously you do need some protein in your diet, and it is possible, if you work at it, not to get enough protein. But vegans get completely adequate protein. So obviously, you could be a junk food vegan. I mean, there are bad ways to be a vegan.
Or you could, if you were a person that was, the one expert told me, it's almost impossible to suffer from a deficiency of protein unless you're anorexic or a drug addict or something, is what the person told me.
Well, there are some. You hear about some fad diets occasionally, which clearly are not very healthy. But it has been drummed into us that we need protein. That protein is the most important thing. Muscle, after all, is made out of protein. All these things, which is true. Muscle is made out of protein, but you're not turning over that protein, every 24 hours. So we just hear about that constantly. The fact of the matter is that many Americans get so much protein that it might actually have deleterious
definitely,
effects on them.
You hear about a lot of people having kidney problems,
sure.
and things, and eating meat and like that is very hard on a person's kidneys.
Oh, sure, and meat has other factors which are bad for you. If you look at the nutritional literature to see what we're really deficient in, it's things like fiber. The American diet is highly deficient. The standard American diet is highly deficient in fiber. is an example where we tend to be deficient in magnesium, which is something you find in plant-based foods. So what we're actually deficient in is very different from what the public perceives as being our nutritional deficiencies.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty funny. It's just too bad there isn't more education out on this. It's too bad it's not addressed in schools and things.
Sure.
So when did you start the transition to being vegan? And I think you've already gone over your reasons for that.
Well, so I started. Yeah, I mean, it would have been, I think mostly in terms of my children's ages now, but it would have been about 21, between 21 and 23 years ago, I think. It was after hearing a lecture by Peter Singer, the ethicist, and I just listened to him. He talked about the consequences of agriculture and how to judge it, and I just said he's right. I mean, I found his arguments unassailable. And I said, well, if I find his arguments are true, I have to make the change. I mean, if I can't agree with this argument, and then not follow through on its consequences. So that's the point at which I became.
When I was about 50 years old, I found that there was a vegetarian society in Chautauqua County, and I didn't know before I went the first time if they were just people that didn't eat meat or if they were complete vegetarians, So I was happily surprised when I went, and I started learning all of these things by going there. I started learning about how it affects the environment and all of that, and things that I hadn't heard before. And so I just had to. I just had to do it. I just had to. So.
Well, the thing is, that once you do it, it's really not as difficult as
it's not. People go, well, what do you eat? Well, there's so many foods that you find out about that you never knew existed. There are all of these things, and we'll maybe get into that later in the episode here. But one thing I'm surprised about is, since us vegans don't eat dairy products, I am surprised that, the people are always asking us, where do you get your protein? I'm surprised that people don't ask us where we get our calcium,
But we do get calcium.
Yes, we do, don't we? Yeah. Would you want to mention to the viewing audience where you get your calcium?
So I mean, there's in my own diet, there's a couple big sources of calcium. So the biggest is probably leafy green vegetables. So I eat lots of kale and other, kale, dandelion greens, and other. So really dark green vegetables every day. Then a lot of the plant-based milks now are fortified with calcium, which is what, just as a side point, it's a lot easier to be a vegan today than it's ever been in the past.
Oh, it has. Everything is available to us.
I can go
now
to any supermarket now and I can find almond milk or soy milk or whatever. So there's lots of and then tofu. So I have a big tofu consumer.
Oh yeah.
And
nuts and seeds.
Nuts and seeds.
Nuts and seeds,
sure.
Especially almonds and sesame seeds.
Yeah, right. Yes. So there's lots of plant sources of calcium, and one of the interesting things is that we know, or is quite startling, is that if you look at populations that have very high dairy consumptions, they're also often the populations at the highest rates of osteoporosis.
I was just thinking about mentioning that myself. Yes, it's really true. That's why so many elderly ladies, well, men too, who faithfully drank milk every day all their life, have osteoporosis.
Right, and osteoporosis is rare in some cultures where they drink. There are entire. It's funny. So as an American, it's taught as if you don't have milk every day, you're going to die, or all these terrible things. But of course, there are whole swaths of the earth where people are lactose intolerant, or that culturally they don't drink milk. Across Asia, milk has never been a part of the diet until recently. Some people have taken up dairy products, and then they've had worse health outcomes.
They started not having good health after they started using them. Yeah, it's a big thing towards cancer too. The dairy products, especially for the reproductive organs.
Yeah. So I mean, some of these things, obviously, with science, there's always a certain amount of uncertainty. But yes, if you look at the evidence, it's very clear that the high meat consumption, high dairy consumption diet that most of us eat are linked to these, they talk about lifestyle diseases and cancer. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all cancer is caused by...
No, and it isn't. But, but certain types of cancer are...
It clearly is a contributing factor. And fortunately, medical science is increasingly recognizing it. As you'll see increasingly that people are saying that physicians will tell people that to consider a vegan diet. So I think there's been some movement in the medical establishment on that. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. The first time I heard about you, somebody told. I think it was 3 years ago. Now, Jeremy is a summer resident at the Chautauqua Institution. Would you like to tell a viewing audience why you decided to start spending summers?
Oh, I love the Chautauqua Institution. I love the area. The institution is such a wonderful resource. So I live in Cleveland, first of all, I'm on the east side of the city, so it's only about a 2-hour drive, so not very far. And the history of the institution, the educational stimulation that one gets there. I enjoy the people, the community. So we've been coming here since 2001. So it's really part of our family's life now.
Since 2001, you 2001, have? Okay, so for 20 years you've been coming. Yeah. I didn't realize you'd been coming that long.
Yeah.
But anyway, the first thing I heard about you, I think it was 3 years ago. One of my friends, who is somebody that I got acquainted with because she is a summer resident at the Chautauqua Institution, and she said, "Did you hear about the free vegan dinner?" Yes. It was in the newspaper. I said I didn't even know about it, otherwise I might have gone. But apparently, that was before I met you the first time. And then it was the following summer, 2 years ago, that my friend Ann Watkins, that puts on the vegan dinners with me at the Y in Westfield, she mentioned to me that there's some people over there, she said, that they have potluck dinners, vegan dinners, every 2 weeks at the Chautauqua Institution. And I'm going, oh, really? And well, I never did get to going around to one of them, but that summer, summers get so darn busy for me. But anyways, but then in August 2 years ago, you and your wife Teresa showed up at one of our dinners at the Y in Westfield, and of course we were very happy to meet you.
And we were very happy to be there. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
So, but then last year you said you didn't spend much time.
No, we weren't here. Obviously, that was the height of the pandemic, and so we did not spend a lot of time here. And, you're talking about a time. It's hard to remember. It wasn't that long ago that they didn't want you to cross the state border.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, you said you were starting to do it this summer.
Yeah, so we had a couple this summer. At the beginning of the summer, in terms of the pandemic, things were looking better. So we had them, we indicated that we wanted people who had been vaccinated to, only people who were vaccinated to attend. Unfortunately, as the summer went on and the situation started to unravel a bit, we thought it was prudent not to have any more this summer. So we're sorry about that, but it just seemed to be the sensible thing to do. But we're hoping that
next year things will finally be under control.
And that we'll be able to get back to having regular.
Well, I want to take a step backwards in our conversation and have you describe how things went the day of the free vegan dinner 3 years ago. You weren't expecting that big of a turnout.
Oh, we expected a big turnout, but it was, yeah, so they were doing a food week at the institution, and so we wanted there to be a vegan presence. And so we arranged to use Hurlburt Church, where they have a dining area in the basement there and a kitchen area.
Is that the church where they serve lunches
yes,
in
that's
the
the church
summer?
where they serve lunches, right? So they had the kind of the facilities that we could use, and we got people to make food, the vegan people to make food. We purchased vegan food. We got vegan lasagna made by a restaurant, which unfortunately is no longer in business at the institution.
Oh.
But they made us big vegan lasagna, and we made huge pots of vegan chili, and we served and free. And the only thing is, we had pamphlets, vegan pamphlets explaining veganism, which we gave to everybody who came in. So people offered us money, and we said, nope, just take the pamphlet. That's the only thing, the only cost that had. And it was enormously successful. We had well over 300, something like 350 people. I don't remember what the final count was, but we had a huge number of people show up for the
a lot more than you were expecting.
Well, I mean, we had enough food, so we didn't. We served food till we ran out. But I think we pretty much fed everybody who showed up. People seemed to like it a great deal, and it was. Now, I do have to say, it was an enormous amount of work. So the chances of us doing it again anytime soon are kind of slim.
Yeah.
Because it was just, I mean, it consumed so much of our Chautauqua summer preparing for it and stuff. But I'm glad we did it, and it kind of put us on the map. And we got a very nice interview in the Chautauqua Daily. So it's about getting the ideas out there, because I am interested in doing that. I want to persuade people that to try the vegan lifestyle. I want to see the number of vegans. So if we looked. So vegans are a small minority now in the population, but we're a bigger minority now than we've ever been in the past, and I just want to see those numbers
keep going up,
because that's the only way. The goal is to end animal suffering, to help the environment, to improve people's health, and I think we do that by building a movement of vegans, by building acceptance of it. It's a big struggle, because we're working against common cultural assumptions that people have. It's just you grow up doing something and you don't see anything wrong with it. Just because your parents tell you it's okay, all your friends tell you it's okay, but there's always the danger of, it's like the fish who doesn't know it lives in water, because that's all it knows, right?
Right.
Is that it's all around you, and yet there are whole cultures in the world where eating meat is not accepted. So I've been to India, and most Indians are not vegans, but about 60% of them are vegetarians.
Right.
And it's there's a very different relationship between people and animals. Now, I'm not going to argue that it's optimal or perfect, but you're struck by how differently people think about their relationship with animals in some parts of the world than we do here. And there's no reason to assume that ours is better than anyone else's.
In fact, in some parts of the world, like for instance, the Soviet state of Georgia, where people live to be way over 100 years old, and still be healthy, and basically they. You used to see advertisements for yogurt on television. I remember back when I was young, where they were claiming the reason these people got to be so old and maintain good health and everything supposedly was because they ate yogurt. But if you really look into it, what you find out is that those people never heard of yogurt before the Dannon company came there with.
I didn't know that.
That was what I wound up finding out. I thought it was pretty amusing,
Yeah.
really.
But so, I mean, it's certainly true. There are areas of the world where people tend to live longer.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, oftentimes those people aren't necessarily vegetarians. But if you actually look at their diet, you discover they consume very, very small quantities
Of animal
of
foods,
animal fat,
yeah.
right? And that's certainly true. I mean, I think the best examples of that, if you look at certain Asian populations, very often, it's not, once again, except for the Buddhists, some Buddhists who are consciously vegetarian, many of them will eat some animal products, but it's, the diet is much more composed of, vegetables, tofu, beans, things, and so forth. So it's a very high vegetable. So the evidence for the superiority of a plant-based diet is very convincing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. Anyways, we should probably talk about some of the things that are in our diet that maybe other people have not heard about. Now, we regularly at our house eat ground up flax seed.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use the ground up flax seed mixed with water in place of eggs in like baked goods. And another thing that we eat is nutritional yeast flakes, a really good source of B vitamins and I think potassium.
I'd have to look at the label, so I don't remember.
I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I do know, and it gives things a cheesy flavor for people who really don't want to give up cheesy tasting stuff. My husband loves to put it on popcorn, and so we go through a lot of it. There's such a wide variety of different beans and things we can get. What are some things you would like to mention?
So I eat a lot of soy products. Tofu is something tofu, people who aren't used to tofu in a diet don't know what to do with it. It's this block, it's kind of tasteless and so forth. But the great thing about cooking with tofu is that it absorbs whatever sauces that you put into it. So there are lots of ways to prepare. Lots of good advice on the internet on preparing. If you go online on YouTube and just look up, vegan recipes and stuff, there are dozens and dozens of YouTube channels which are vegan cooking. So I like tofu and tempeh, or the kind of the common soy dishes that I use a lot of. I don't have a problem with using vegan mock meats, So
the mock meats, yeah.
So there's lots of them.
Yeah. They're nice when you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
If you don't have time to do something totally from scratch, which happens from time to time.
Right, and obviously some of them are highly processed, and you might want to not make them the mainstay of your diet.
Right.
Textured vegetable protein.
Right.
So all textured vegetable protein is when they make soybean oil, it's what's left over from when they make soy. So it's you can use it as a substitute for ground beef, and you use it in chilies. I often mix it with salsa, and it's wonderful. You just reconstitute it with water, mix it with a sauce, and there's all kinds of things that you can do with it. So there are lots of options. In some ways, being a vegan, it gives you a chance to be really creative. Is given these ingredients, and I think rather than thinking of it as limiting, it's opening you up because you start to learn about all these other vegetables and fruits and things that you've never heard of before, never thought to. Never thought to try. Cooking with bok choy, for example, is a nice, a very healthy vegetable that you can buy in most stores now. For example, very nice in a stir fry. Though I don't fry with oil anymore. So.
Well, one thing that I believe that everybody should have a little bit of every day. Dr. Joel Furman, who you've probably heard of, he's got that. The initials for certain foods that you have every day is G-bombs.
Right, yes.
Let's see. That would be greens.
Oh, greens, right.
Greens, beans, onions,
that's
mushrooms, berries and seeds, I
something like that.
think. Yeah.
So that's good advice.
You should eat something from what's known as the allium family every day, which it would be onions, garlic, leeks, and so forth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I think that's all. I think his books are very interesting and very helpful for people. I guess the other thing I'd recommend is nutritionfacts.org.
With Dr. Michael Greger.
Dr. Greger. What I particularly like about his work is that he is very grounded in the research. And sometimes you'll have an opinion, but you'll discover, well, the research doesn't really support that. But he's just very persuasive in terms of about why the plant-based diet is better, but also lots of helpful ideas about
he even
what to eat every
makes
day.
suggestions on how to prepare certain foods and things in his book. I've got a copy. It was given to me by Ann Watkins as a gift a few years back, How Not to Die.
Yes. Right.
And he has his personality comes through in the book because he apparently has a very humorous personality, because he tells stories about his experiences with food that are very, very amusing. He also has a list of several.
I think it's a daily dozen or something. He has a list of foods that you're supposed to eat every day.
Well, he has a list of the different things that you can die from.
Oh, die from, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I had to laugh because the third major cause of death, according to him, after heart disease and cancer, is the medical profession. I don't know did you hear?
I haven't heard that, no.
You haven't heard that? He's got the list in his How Not to Die book. And it has a lot to do with medical errors and things that can happen to people.
I have to see that. I certainly don't want to discourage people from seeing medical professionals and seeing their doctors.
No.
Is that your doctors, medical science is not. Medical science is. They've made mistakes, and they need to learn more about nutrition and about plant-based diets and things like that.
It should be required for them to take to take nutrition classes in college, but they're not.
Yeah. So I think that's true. But on the other hand, they do some pretty amazing things, and life expectancy in general has gone up, and it's primarily because of things that the medical profession has done. Better, obviously better sanitation, but also better care.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't want to be hostile to the doctors. I mean, I think they're an important thing, and we just have to persuade more of them. That's all.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the video What the Health? I can't remember the name of the guy that produced it, but
I'm not sure.
Ann Watkins has a copy of it, and she loaned it to me for a month one time. And I swear to you, I think I watched that DVD 2 or 3 times a week. I found it so fascinating. Michael Greger was one of the doctors.
I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah. Oh, you'd really find it fascinating. Yeah. I just can't remember the name of the guy that produced it. He kind of introduces himself at the beginning of the DVD as being a recovering hypochondriac. There were all of these types of health issues that ran in his family, and he was sure he was going to die young from one or the other of them, and everything, until he started looking into a plant-based way of life.
So the video that I think it came out a few years ago is The Game Changers. I don't know if you know.
Oh, no, I hadn't heard
The
of
Game
it.
Changers is really interesting because it's about vegan athletes. And it's an interview with Olympic level, professional level athletes who are vegan. And I think it's an important message to get out there, because it's not only about preserving our health, it's also that you can have high levels of performance. I mean, these are elite athletes competing at the very edge of the highest levels of their field, and yet they're all plant-based.
It used to be that bodybuilders thought they had to eat a lot of meat to build up those big, strong muscles, but now I found out that a lot of bodybuilders now are going vegan, and I even met a married couple that are bodybuilders.
Yeah. So if you're a high-level athlete, then you probably are in one of the categories where you might need a little bit more protein. But you can get all those protein requirements met through plant-based
right.
sources.
Yeah, because some of those really top athletes were interviewed on the What the Health DVD. People with very muscular and strong and everything.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think we want to get away from the stereotype that if you're a vegan, you're going to be weak and unhealthy. Or
right,
which is simply not true.
Right, yeah, you're not. You're not. Actually, I'm going to be 72 years old in a few days, and I do not have any of those so-called age-related health issues. You know, I'm in good health at that age, and a lot of people are not.
Right.
Who've
That's good.
been eating the standard American diet.
Right.
I remember the one expert that spoke at some of our veg dinners has said that 100% of all the men that get prostate cancer are men that eat meat and dairy products.
I don't know if that's true.
He seemed to think so because he was with the Coalition for Cancer Prevention through nutrition.
Yeah. So if you look at, once again, if you look at Asian populations, many men do have prostate cancer.
In Asia?
In Asia, yes. But the question is, there's a lot of problems with prostate diagnosis. Is that a very large percentage of men have prostate cancer, but will die of something else. And I think it's probably fair to say that the Western diet contributes to that for many people, for that cancer getting out of control. But I think I would be hesitant to say that you would never get prostate cancer if you were on a vegan diet. I wouldn't say that, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're all going to die of something, right? And it doesn't matter how much you exercise. Exercising and diet is going to improve the quality of your life vastly, but you're still going to die, and you're going to die of something.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be hesitant to say that these things are 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, it's my understanding, though, that people on a plant-based diet do enjoy a better quality of life
absolutely.
at the end of their life,
Right.
though.
I totally agree with you. I'm a little bit scared of the absolute statements because I don't want to promise something I can't. Like I said, Michael Greger might title his book "How Not to Die," and he has lots of good advice in the book. But you're still going to die.
He doesn't say that you'll never die. He just says that
a lot of the things
you can prolong your life and live a healthier, more pleasant life.
No question about it. No question about it. And the benefits to you, the benefits to society are so much greater from having a plant-based diet. So I definitely think that you're on the right track if you're doing that. Definitely people need to, if you want to stay healthy for the longest possible time, that's the optimal course.
Oh, yeah.
So. Now,
has Teresa been vegan as long as you have?
No, she has not. So, she has not been as long as I have. So, but you have to bring your family along. So it takes persuasion. One advantage in my household is I do all the shopping and cooking.
Oh, do you? I didn't know that.
I have complete control over what everyone eats. So my kids, for instance, are not vegan. They grew up largely before that. Getting old here. But when I cook at home, that's all they had. That's all they get. So I do all the cooking.
Okay, well, when you came to our last vegetarian vegan society dinner, you had Teresa's mom
Yes.
and one of your children.
My son was there.
Was
yeah,
with
yeah.
you.
So yeah, Teresa's mother is a vegan.
Oh, I
So-
wondered about
yeah,
that.
and she lives with us, so
uh-huh.
it's a very nice arrangement.
Well, you know, she could pass for being Teresa's sister. She looked.
She'll be glad to hear that. Yes.
How old is your
Oh,
mother-in-law?
I'm not sure I'm allowed to. I'll say she's in her 80s. But,
Okay,
but
okay,
I'm not
yeah,
sure. I think
yeah.
I might be.
Okay.
I better not show her this video now because I'll get in deep trouble, I think. But yes, she's very
you know,
active. And
before you told me that she was Teresa's mother, I thought maybe she was Teresa's sister.
No.
You know, so they really look a lot alike. Yeah, yeah, and they brought some really delicious desserts.
Yes, yes. She made a dessert, and
there was. It was some sort of on the order of cookie bars or something.
So yeah, I'm trying to remember what they. I believe I bought a vegan curry.
Oh yeah, you did.
But,
I remember that.
Yeah, so I sometimes it all runs together. What you bring to what event.
Oh yeah.
But that was a very lovely event, and we all had a good time, enjoyed the food and the company. A great deal.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, we enjoyed.
I would encourage people to go if you haven't.
If you haven't been to our veg dinners, come. We'll try to keep having them as long as the coronavirus doesn't get too out of control anymore.
And it's a good way to not only to meet people, but to just see all the options there are in terms of food.
Yeah, you can get ideas for recipes for yourself to
Right,
use when
right.
you see something that somebody else made that you've never tried.
Right.
So-
And it'll get you over this idea that we're just all eating only brown rice or something, as you see. Like
Yeah, or rabbit food. They think we just eat garden vegetables.
Right.
And we do eat a lot of garden vegetables.
Sure, but you can do a lot with garden vegetables.
Oh,
to make
yes,
them
you
interesting,
can. Oh,
yeah.
yes. I think, I think the best lasagna that I ever had was one time when we had somebody who knew about a raw food, how to prepare foods for a raw food diet. We had her cater a raw dinner once or twice for us. And I remember her making a raw lasagna. And I'll tell you, I think that was probably the best lasagna I ever had. She used like summer squash, thinly sliced summer squash in place of lasagna noodles, and I'm not sure how she made the tomato-like sauce, but I think it was more thinner layers of it. And then she had in place of the cheese, it was something she had made with, I can't remember if it was cashews or some other kind of
sounds delicious.
nuts. It was one of those cheese things that you can make with nuts, and it was really, really, really very delicious. It really was.
It is amazing what you can do.
Yeah, it really is. So, what are some of your favorite
Favorite recipes?
recipes?
Oh, there's lots of things I like to make. So I do like to make curries. I mean, that's part of the influence of having visited India. I like Indian food a lot, so I make lentil curries. I make a dish with. I'm trying to think if I can recite the recipe. I probably can't do it now, but I make a dish called Chana Masala, which is made with garbanzo beans and Indian type sauce. And oftentimes I'll put nuts and raisins in it, and I like it. I mean, people tell me they like it, but you're never sure if they're being honest with you or not. So.
Yeah. When I was a few years after I started practicing yoga, maybe 5 or so years later, I had opportunities to pay visits to a city yoga ashram, and the meals in the cafeteria were mainly Indian food. So I kind of got introduced to Indian food there, and I really love Indian food.
Yeah, Indian food is great. I love Asian food in general, and usually, in the context, if you're in a city and you want to know where you can go and get something vegan, oftentimes the Asian
The
restaurants.
or an Indian restaurant, yeah.
Indian restaurant or
yeah.
now you have to ask in an Indian restaurant because they do use butter sometimes and milk products. But if you ask, they're usually very accommodating.
And when they use chicken or something, that's the name of the recipe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do love, you mentioned the brown rice, the thing about some people think all we eat is brown rice, but I really love recipes with either just brown rice or brown basmati rice with vegetables in them, and I like rice with beans.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can throw just about, you can cook just about any kind of bean that you want.
Sure. Yeah, rice. I mean, there's a whole science and culture of rice. I mean, in the States, one of these things, we think there's white rice and brown rice, but there's
a lot of different kinds of rice. Yeah.
And people who grow up on rice diets are very particular about the rice that they
if I go for a couple of weeks or something without having any rice, I start craving it. Oh, I want to have some rice.
Yeah.
So
I like rice. I understand.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, we've actually talked about it on Fresh Perspectives from time to time, but this has to do with vegan ice cream. And my husband 2 years ago bought me something called a Yonana. It's specially made to make ice cream out of frozen. Do you have one?
We have one. Yeah, I haven't used it for a while, but actually I started using my food processor when I do stuff like that. But yes, it's a very useful device. And these banana ice creams, you don't put sugar or anything in them. You don't even have to put vanilla or anything in them. There's just something about the sweetness. Well, they have to be very ripe. They have to be full of speckles, brown spots, in order to be ripe enough. And then you put it in the freezer for 24 hours, and then you can make your ice cream, and you can put berries in with it, or you can, between the time you take it out of the freezer and put it through the machine, you can sprinkle cocoa powder on it, and it winds up tasting so I have to tell
just like chocolate ice cream without any vanilla or anything.
So I have to tell you a story, is that during the pandemic, I got in the habit of ordering food online. So at home, we live not too far from a Whole Foods. And when you order bananas from Whole Foods, you order by the number, you give them the number of bananas that you want. So I got here and I said, Wegmans delivers, so I'll try the Wegmans delivery. But it turned out, when I put in the number, so I said, I want enough bananas for the week, so I'll put in 7 bananas. But it was not individual bananas, it was bunches of bananas.
Did you wind up with 7 bunches of bananas in one delivery?
So, in one delivery, right. So I waited till they riped, and they're all frozen now, sitting in my
waiting to be made into ice cream
or put into smoothies or things like that. So that wasn't a catastrophe, but it was kind of like, I had these huge
what am I going to do with all of these?
These bananas,
oh, wow. That amazes me that they brought you that many bananas.
I'm sure it was my fault. I'm sure I just misunderstood what they were.
It wasn't the same as ordering it from Whole Foods.
Right, it was just different. Yeah.
They must have thought you were going to have a banana split party or something.
I always wonder what they think when they see the strange things I order. But.
Well, I know my one vegan friend. She actually has one of those. Immune system disorders. It's called Mast cell activation syndrome. And, she has to be super careful about what she eats. And she says that she uses bananas as the sweetener in a lot of things. And without all of that's the nice thing about this banana ice cream. It's something you're not putting any sugar in. Or preservatives or anything like that. It's got to be so much better for you than even the other vegan ice creams, because they're putting sugar in those.
If you look at those, you'll see that they're added fat. Oftentimes they put coconut oil in, lots of sugar. So it's you're much better off
with a banana ice
with
cream.
banana ice cream, yeah.
And you can flavor it in so many different ways. A whole book comes with a yonana full of recipes that you can do.
Now, once again, better to eat the vegan ice cream than to eat the other ice cream.
Right.
But you do. I think it is probably reasonable to say that you want to cut down on the amount of processed foods that you have, if possible. And some of the vegan foods are pretty highly processed. So it's just something to keep in mind.
It's just something to use when you're too busy to do something from scratch. But the one thing I want to say about the banana ice cream is you want to eat it when you make it, because Carl and I, the first time or two, we made more than we needed for a serving and put some of it in the freezer, and it will get kind of an icy texture to it that's not as much fun to eat. So if you guys in the viewing audience, if you get a yonana, I would say make it when it's time to eat it, because that's when it's going to be at its best.
Right. An alternative, if you have a food processor, you can just throw some frozen bananas in with a little nut butter, and it makes a very nice ice cream.
It's really yummy with nut butter. What's your favorite nut butter?
Oh, I'm always been a big peanut butter fan. I mean, I use tahini and some of the other ones too, but I've always since a kid I've always liked peanut butter.
Tahini when I make hummus, and sometimes I make homemade halva candy, that Middle Eastern type candy.
Sure.
And but as far as nut butters go, I really like almond and cashew butters. I like to take those big medjool dates and cut them open and take out the pits and fill them with either almond or cashew butter. That's really yummy.
Does sound good. Making me hungry here. Let's talk about food.
Yeah, I know. So, anyways, another thing you can do with the nut butter too, and I was introduced to this by Ann Dinshaw from the American Vegan Society, is to take a certain amount of vegan chocolate chips that don't have any dairy in them, and a certain amount of nut butter, and melt it all together while stirring in the top of a double boiler, and until it's all melted together and creamy and everything, and then put it in a greased pan and stick it in the refrigerator till it gets hard, and that's pretty yummy too. And I think you're really cutting down on the amount of sugar in it when you're mixing the chocolate chips with nut butter instead of doing fudge the way people usually do it. It probably has a lot more sugar in it that way.
Really
so we did something really decadent with that recipe one time when I ran across, well, a few times since, when I ran across some vegan marshmallows. Dandies is the name of the brand, and what we would do is it works especially well with the miniature marshmallows, but you have to cut them up if you get the big ones, and put them in the bottom of the pan, and then when the fudge mixture is all melted, you pour it over the top of that, and then stick graham crackers on the top of that. It's really pretty decadent, though. It isn't something you'd want to eat on a regular basis because it's still calorie dense, but it's kind of fun once in a while for a special treat. Well, we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives, and I am so happy that you came on because this is such an important topic. So thank you very much. And
my pleasure.
Say hi to Teresa for me. I'll do it myself. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
You know. So, okay, I'll look forward to seeing you next summer when you come back to Chautauqua.
I look forward to it too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good.